We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Yud Chesam and Beis in Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 118b. The Mishnah says, Kidesh achas mechamesh nashim. Let's say somebody betroths one of 5 women. Ve'ein yodei ezu kidesh. He doesn't know which woman that he was mekadesh. Kol achas omeres osi kidesh. And every single one says, I was the one that he betrothed. So the halach is, no sen get l'chol achas v'achas. U'meneach ksuba beinein u'mestalik. He gives a get to each woman, and he puts the ksuba between them, and he leaves. He lets them fight over the ksuba. Divrei Rabbi Tarfon, that's Rabbi Tarfon's opinion. Rabbi Akiva says, Ein zu derech motz midei avera. This is not the way to avoid an avera. Achit and get to uchsuba l'chalachas v'achas. He has to give a get and a ksuba to every single one. He doesn't know which woman that he married, and therefore he has to give a ksuba to each woman. And the Mishnah continues along the same lines. Gazal echad mechamisha. Let's say a person stole from one of 5 people. Ve'ein yodea me'eza gazal. He doesn't know which person he stole from. Kol echad omer. Every single one says, Osi gazal, he stole from me. So again, Rabbi Tarfon says, Meniach gizela beinein u'mestalik. He puts whatever he stole among them, and then he leaves. He lets them fight over who should get it. Divrei Rabbi Tarfon, that's Rabbi Tarfon's opinion. Rabbi Akiva says, Ein zu derech motzi midei avera. This is not the way to avoid avera. As sheyeshalim l'chol echad v'echad. He has to pay every single one back, because again, he does not know exactly who he stole from. And the Gemara says, Kidesh katani bo'al lo katani. The case in the Mishnah is that the person betroths 5 women, and he doesn't know which one that he betrothed, but it's not talking about a situation where he actually had relations with the 5 women. And similarly, Gazal katani, it says in the Mishnah that he stole from these 5 individuals and doesn't know who he stole from. But lokach lo katani, the case in the Mishnah is not a situation where he purchased something from one of 5 individuals and doesn't know who he owes the money to. And so the Gemara says, Mani Masnisin, who's the author of our Mishnah? Lo Tanakama v'lo Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. It's not going to be the Tanakama, and it's not going to be Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar in the following Brisa. And the Gemara continues, the Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Lo nechliku Rabbi Tarfon v'Rabbi Akiva al shekidesh achas mechamesh nashim. Number 1, Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva do not argue about a situation where a person betroths one of 5 women. Ve'eno yodeya ezu kidesh, he doesn't know which one he betrothed. Everybody agrees that in that case he can just put the ksuba down and leave. He doesn't need to give every single one a ksuba, meaning even Rabbi Akiva agrees with Rabbi Tarfon in that situation. What are they arguing about? Al Shabal, only in a situation where he actually had relations with one of the 5 women and he doesn't know who it was with. In that case, Rabbi Tarfon Omer meiniach ksuba beineinu mistalik. Again, Rabbi Tarfon says in that case as well, he can just put the ksuba among them and leave. Rabbi Akiva Omer yeshalim l'chalachas v'achas. But Rabbi Akiva says no, in that situation where he had relations, that's already worse. If he doesn't know who it was with, he has to pay every single one the ksuba in such a case. And furthermore, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Lo nechelku Rabbi Tarfon Rabbi Akiva al shalokach mekach mechamisha b'nei adam. Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva do not disagree in a case where a person just purchased something from one of 5 people. Ve'ein yodeya me'ezeh me'en lokach. He doesn't know who he purchased from. In that case, everybody agrees that you can be lenient. Sheminiach d'mei mekach b'nei, and he can simply leave the money for the purchase between them, umistalik, and he can go. In other words, even Rabbi Akiva agrees with Rabbi Tarfon in such a case. Lo nechliku ela shegazal mechamisha. The only machlokas is in a situation where he stole from the 5 people. In that case, Shamar Rabbi Tarfon meiniach gezela b'neim umistalik. There, Rabbi Tarfon says even where he stole, he can just leave what he stole among them and leave. For Rabbi Akiva Omer, Rabbi Akiva says, no, you got to be stricter there. He's got to pay back what was stolen from every single person. And so the Gemara, to every single person. And so the Gemara continues, Midakamer Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar b'kidesh v'lokach lo pligi. From the fact that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says that in situations of betrothal or in situations of purchases, there is no argument. In other words, in those cases, everyone says you can be lenient. Mechlal the Tanakama Savar, that implies that the Tanakama who argues Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar holds, Savar pligi, that no, they are arguing in a situation of kidesh and lokach. And so the Gemara now says money. So now who's the author of our Mishnah? Our Mishnah doesn't fit with either of the opinions in this brisa, because if the Mishnah is following the Tanakama, so listni kidesh v'lokach, so then the arguments are specifically by the cases of betrothal and purchases. And here Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, and if our Mishnah follows Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, listni bo'al v'gazal, then the arguments are specifically by the cases where there was relations that were had, or cases of thievery. And so the Gemara answers, Liolam Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. No, really, our Mishnah actually is Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. In other words, our Mishnah is talking about situations where there was relations that was had, or you have a situation where the item was stolen. And in those cases, you have machlokas, because it was a situation of relations, because it was a situation where something was stolen, so there Rabbi Akiva is strict. And how do you understand the Mishnah? My Kiddush, what the Mishnah says, the word Kiddush, what does it mean? It means Kiddush b'biyah. It actually means that the person betrothed through an act of biyah. That's actually the case of the Mishnah. It's a case of betrothal through biyah, so effectively it is talking about biyah. And the Gemara explains, Tana Kidesh lo diacha kochet Rabbi Akiva. The reason why it uses this language of Kidesh, it's talking about a betrothal through an act of biyah, is to tell the strength of Rabbi Akiva's position. Di'avagav di surah d'rabbanan avad, even though this isn't the greatest isser in the world, the person did you're not supposed to really be mekadesh b'biyah. There's an isser d'rabbanan to be mekadesh b'biyah. Even though he did that isser d'rabbanan, it's only an isser d'rabbanan kanis. Even in such a situation, there's a knas, there's a fine over here, and Rabbi Akiva says, again, since he had relations and he doesn't know who he had relations with, and he did this Isser D'Rabbanan, we're going to find the individual and say he has to pay the ksuba to every single woman. And the Gemara continues, Tana Gezel lo diacha kochad Rabbi Tarfon, and furthermore, the Mishnah teaches the case of Gezel, the case of thievery, to show you the strength of Rabbi Tarfon, that he's lenient even over there. The Afagav di Surah Doraisa, that even though the person violated an Isser Doraisa, he actually stole something, that's an Isser Doraisa. Lo kanis Rabbi Tarfon does not have any knas even in that situation, and says he does not have to pay back every single individual. Again, he could just leave the gezela among them, and he can leave. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ha'isha shahalcha hi u'ba'ala l'medinas hayam. Let's say you have a case where a woman and her husband, they go l'medinas hayam, they go on a trip, u'v'noi moim, and their son is with them. U'vasav yamar, then she comes back and she says, Meis bali, my husband died, v'yachar kach meis b'ni, and afterwards my son died. In other words, she says that my son died after, and so therefore there's no need for me to do yibum. Now, so she's believed in that case, because again, there was no presumption of yibum. When she left, she had a child. There was no chazakah she needed to do yibum, and so therefore we believe her, and we say she does not need to do yibum. Meis b'ni v'yachar kach meis bali. Now let's say she says my son died first, and then my husband died, so then she's saying that she needs to do yibum, and there was no chazakah that she needed to do yibum before, so eino ne'emenes, she's not believed, and she's not able to do yibum, because it's possible there is no yibum here, and it's a problem of eshazach. V'choshen l'dvareh, we're concerned with her words in both directions, we're strict. V'choletzes v'lo mesyavemes, therefore we have her do chalitza and not do yibum. And the Mishnah continues, Niten li ben b'medinas hayam. Let's say when she left, she had no child, and now she tells us she had a child while she was on the trip. V'yomra meis b'ni v'yachar kach meis bali. But then she says, my son died first, and then my husband died, and so therefore I am still going to need to do yibum because my son died before my husband died. So again, ne'emenes, she's going to be believed, and she'll be able to do yibum because that was the original presumption when she left, was that she had no children, and she was standing to do yibum. Meis bali v'yachar. Now let's say she says my husband died first and then my son died, and so therefore in this situation really she's trying to get herself out of yibum. So there eino ne'emenes, she's not believed because again when she left she had no children, there was a presumption that she has to do yibum, so she's not believed. However, v'choshen l'dvareh, however we are concerned with her words. In other words, we have to be strict in both directions. V'choletzes v'lo mesyavemes, and so therefore again she's going to do chalitza and she is not able to do yibum. And the Mishnah continues, Niten li yavam b'medinas hayam. Let's say she says that while I was on the trip, there was suddenly a yavam, there was suddenly a brother-in-law that was born to me b'medinas hayam. Amra meis bali, and she says that my husband died. V'yachar kach meis yevami, and then my yavam died, so there's no yibam. Or yevami v'yachar kach bali, or she says my yavam died, and then my husband died. So ne'emenes, so in that case she is believed, because in that case she's essentially getting out of yibam, which we thought she was out of anyway. We thought there was no yavam. Now let's say she, her husband, and her brother-in-law, they go on this trip. She says, my husband died, and then the Yavam died. Or Yevami v'yachar kach bali, she says my Yavam died and then my husband died. In these cases, eino ne'emenes, she's not believed. This does not get her out of yibum. She can't be believed to say that the Yavam died. And the Mishnah explains she'ein ha'isha ne'emenes lomar meis Yevami shetinasi, because in general a woman is not believed to say that my brother-in-law died in order to allow her to marry somebody else to get out of yibum. V'lo meisa achosa shetikanis lebei. So similarly, a woman is not believed to say that her sister died in order that she can go ahead and marry her sister's husband. Similarly, a man is not believed to say that my brother died, and therefore I'm the one that is able to do yibum with his wife. And similarly, a man is not believed to say that his wife died in order that he should go ahead and marry her sister. And the Gemara says, Boy minei Rava me Rav Nachman, Rava asked Rav Nachman the following question: Hamezaka get lishto b'makam yavam. Let's say somebody gives a get to a shliach for his wife, and it's a situation where really, if he dies, the wife is going to have to do yibum. So, what's the halach over there? Kevan de Sanyale, since she hates the yavam, she doesn't want to do yibum. So zechusula, so it's actually a merit for her to be divorced. She wants to be divorced because she prefers that to her husband dying. V'zachin ladam shelo b'fanav, and the rule is zachin ladam shelo b'fanav. If you're doing something good for somebody, then it's going to work for them even when they're not there. And automatically, the moment that the get reaches the shliach, she's going to be divorced. Odilmer maybe kevan de zimnan de rachmale, since sometimes she maybe likes the yavam, maybe she prefers to marry the yavam. So chovula, so this is a bad thing for her to be divorced. You can't do something bad for somebody when they are not present, and therefore she is not divorced immediately when the shliach receives the get. Rashi over here says, he makes a shliach to receive her get. He wants her to be divorced immediately when he gives the get to the shliach. Meaning there's a brother-in-law, he has a brother. The point over here is he's trying to get her out of yibum. Now, if there's no yavam over here and he's trying to divorce her, it's obvious that she's not divorced until it gets to her. You can't do something bad for somebody when they're not present. But here there's really a real question whether this might be a zechus for her because it's trying to get her out of yibum. And so the Gemara says, Amar Le, he said back to him, this is Rav Nachman responding to Rava, Tanina, we learn the answer in our Mishnah. It says, V'choshin l'dvarev, v'choletzes v'lomis yavemes. It says, in all of the cases, we have to be concerned for both sides, and therefore she has to do chalitza and not yibum. And Rashi over here explains, V'choshin l'dvarev, midaktani b'tarvayu choshin, we say by both cases we're concerned. B'yotza b'cheskas heter l'shuk. For example, let's say she goes off on the trip, and at that point when she leaves, the presumption is that she's not going to be doing yibum. And then she comes back with a report that makes a presumption that really she does now have an obligation to do yibum. So we say over there you have to be concerned both directions. Maybe she has to do yibum, but maybe she doesn't, and therefore she should do chalitza. We don't say, well, she had an original presumption that she's allowed to marry, let her marry. We don't say she was certainly lying because really she liked the yavam and therefore she made up this lie. You see that there's no presumption that she loves the yavam. But we learn the other way also. Let's say she leaves with the presumption that she's supposed to do yibum. And then she comes back with a report that makes her get out of the yibum. Could go nitan libain. For example, she says, I had a son, umeis bali, and my husband died, and then my son died, so I don't have yibum anymore. We say over there that we have to be concerned the other direction, and she should not do yibum. We don't say, oh, she's certainly a liar, and really she just hates the yavam, and really we say that she should do yibum. We don't say that. You see, sometimes she doesn't hate him. Alma, the point is, what do you see misafkalan, that really we don't really know whether she likes or dislikes the yavam. V'gabi mizaka get nami, and therefore when it comes to a situation where he's mizaka get also misafkalan irachmalei v'chovula, we don't really know if she likes him and this is a bad thing for her. Isanyala, or maybe she hates him, and it's a good thing for her to get divorced. So therefore, in such a situation, we're going to say that again, she should do chalitza and she should not do yibum. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Ravina l'Rava. Ravina says to Rava, HaMezaka get lishto. Let's say somebody's mezaka get for his wife. Again, the same case is giving it to a shliach with the intention that she be divorced immediately. B'makam k'tat, in a situation where we know the husband and wife were quarreling. Mahu, what's the halach? Again, same question. Kevan disla k'tata, since they're fighting, bahadei with him, since she's fighting with him, zechusula. So it's good for her to get divorced, and she should be divorced immediately. Odilmer maybe nicha degufa adif lano. She'd rather have the companionship, even if they are fighting. fighting, so maybe it's not a good thing for her to be divorced. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here the following proof. The Yomer Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish would say, Tav l'meitav tandu milamesav armalu. It's better to be two bodies than one. In other words, better to be married even in a situation where it's not ideal. Rashi says, Tandu gufim shnayim kol dubal. It's as long as it's gufim shnayim, that's going to be preferred. In other words, the statement of Reish Lakish is saying that it's preferable for her to be married. You should assume that it's not something that she wants to be divorced. And the Gemara continues along the same line. Abaya says, Deshum shemona gavra, even if a person has a husband as small as an ant, but such a woman, you can seat her amongst the noble women. Rashi over here says, she's going to consider herself married. And she's going to put her chair among those who are the noble women, even if she has a nothing husband. And that's the same basic point. It's preferable for the person to be able to say that she's a married woman. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. Rapapa says, the nafza gavra tikri b'seife bava v'tesiv. Rashi over here says, the nafza, this is talking about someone who combs wool, umnaso mu'usa menafet semer. He's got to really lowly work, the husband, he combs wool. So even in such a situation, the Gemara is saying, tikri b'seife bava v'tesiv. She calls that husband out, even though he has this lowly work. She calls him to sit at the front. She wants to sit with him to show that she is married. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. Ravashi says, the kul sagavra lo boy talfachi lekidra. Rashi says that means the kul sagavra. Shemetz psul mishpacha means again there's some kind of disqualification in the family. Talfachi means adoshim, lentils. Shumaychel kal vein chisorn kiskol kach. That's a food that is very cheap. It's nothing, but even that little amount of food, eina shoelos mimenu. She doesn't ask him even for that. Ach yikra shemo aleh. She rather no, he calls his name upon her. In other words, again, she prefers to be married even in such a situation. And the Gemara continues, Tana was taught, V'kulon mizanos, all of these kinds of women who are married to these husbands, where it's not really a situation that's an ideal husband, they all commit adultery, V'tolos bevalein, and any children that they have, they say that again, the child came from their husband. Hadron alocha isha shalom. This is the conclusion of the 15th parak of Mesechet Yevamos. If you're enjoying these videos and this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. And please take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we'll continue in the next video on Daf Yud Tes Amud Aleph.